Welcome to the National Manufacturing Debate 2012 at Cranfield University, and welcome to Sir Alan Rudge, Chairman of the ERA Foundation. Alan, you spoke last year at the National Manufacturing Debate, and the ERA Foundation is a sponsor of this year's event. What do you believe the impact of an event like this can be on the fortunes of industry?
I think it's important that we accept, first of all, that just talking about it once doesn't mean that the problem goes away. And this problem, the manufacturing problem in the UK, certainly hasn't gone away. Getting people together at an event like this, you get people that are concerned about it, that are apparently doing something about it. I think the exchange of views and a progress report, if you like, on have we made any progress since we last met, is important. So I think the manufacturing debate here is both an important occasion and one that should be continued for the foreseeable future. You mentioned progress reports and updates there. Last year you spoke about the conflicting agendas between decarbonisation and industrial development in the UK. Do you believe that any progress has been made there with relevance to today's theme of enhancing the supply chain for growth? I don't think we've really bit the bullet on it because the Tata Steel gentleman today in his presentation showed a graph in which he showed how the taxes that we are loading on our energy costs are affecting Tata Steel. It's making our electricity twice the price of some of our major competitors, as a result of which the temptation for Tata is to move their production to these countries because they have plant in each of them. So we are still applying these climate change and carbon taxes on our energy costs. Then he carries on to tell us, the Tata gentleman carried on to tell us that they then lose the competition for their steel because it's too expensive. So we then buy our steel from overseas. Having made our own steel too expensive, we then buy somebody else's. If you can see the logic of that, then please explain it to me.
The Energy and Climate Change Committee, to some extent, recently recognised this problem in the UK, and in an attempt to make UK carbon emissions data more realistic, suggested that carbon emissions data should be based on consumption-based data rather than production-based data. EEF cautiously welcomed that proposal. Would you say the same, or too much confusion still?
No, I mean, somehow or other we've got to save our high energy industry, and all this means, of course, is you're trying to shift the taxes off them onto somebody else. I don't believe that you should have the taxes in the first place, so that's my position very firmly. I don't think we as a nation can afford it. We're not in a position to afford it. But if you are going to have the taxes, if you load them on the high energy user, then you won't have any high energy users. They just move away. They have to move away. So in that sense, it makes some sense, but I don't approve of it anyway.
Since you spoke here last year, crisis in the Eurozone has hit the headlines and changed the outlook for a lot of manufacturers. With regards to today's theme of enhancing the supply chain for growth, do you think that, how do you think the Eurozone crisis has changed the game for manufacturers? Well,
clearly for the smaller manufacturers, if they're selling directly into Europe, then it's going to add to their problems. At the same time, it's also affecting their competition, and anything that damages the competition has to give you an opportunity. There is a lot of pressure at the moment on the small and medium-sized businesses to try to open their markets beyond Europe, and maybe this extra pressure will encourage at least some of them to do it. It's not an easy matter for them to sell to the Far East, for example, but in a way that has to be the solution. To be too dependent on one zone is obviously exposes you to any disaster that may occur in that zone. So there is some potential good in it, but it will be a tougher period for them.
Are there any particular points that you would like to see raised at this afternoon's debate?
Well, some of them are, we've mentioned already, the question of whether it's wise for us to be applying this Climate Change Act as we have it at the moment, which is far too damaging to industry to really afford. I think that I'd like to see that come up again. It isn't that making energy efficient is not a desirable thing. That's a very desirable thing, but almost the market drives that anyway. If you can use less energy and you reduce the cost of your product, then do it. But to artificially load taxes onto a country which is struggling at the moment to try to retain its industrial base, I mean, it's in decline, you have to remember that, is not the smartest thing we ever came up with. And I hope that comes up during the course of today, and that there is more debate on it. The other issue which has already arisen this morning is the banking one, the fact that we have a small and medium-sized sector which has been badly underfinanced over the past several decades, as a result of which, of course, it makes it slower growth and harder for them to grow and harder for them to take opportunities when they come along because they can't get the finance for it. So I hope that issue will come up too.
And having discussed those things this afternoon, you said at the beginning of the interview it does no good to simply talk. How would you suggest that various stakeholders here today, people from trade bodies, manufacturers themselves, Cranfield University as a representative of academia, can take the points raised and try and create some action on them?
Well, I think first of all you have to understand that because there is a good news story, and there's always a few good news stories, does not mean that we've solved the problem. And to go away with the idea, isn't it wonderful, you know, we've had several speakers and they're all doing the right things and the banks are doing the right things and this, therefore we can go away and everything's going to be fine, is a big mistake. What we've got to do is take the good examples and say, well, let's look at everywhere where it doesn't apply and to consider what changes we need to make to actually create the kind of change that's necessary to fix our economic performance. And the fundamental thing is the idea that by spreading a little bit of money across a lot of huge range of activities, somehow or other we're fixing them all. Clearly we're not. And it's the scale often of the activity that is so wrong. You may be doing the right things, but are you doing it at a scale which is going to make a difference? We need to close a trade gap of 30 billions a year. Remember, the defence budget is about 37 billion, I think, at the moment, so you're not talking about peanuts. To do that requires a huge effort, not a minor send of 50 million here or 10 million there. That isn't going to do it.
Excellent. Thank you, Sir Alan.